example, and if you see the slides, you can see the two examples. But I talked little more details about one of the disease called Down syndrome, where a child will exhibit a serious learning disabilities. So child will not be able to learn properly. Okay, so then I gave some kind of, I think I talked a little more detail about that. Anyway, so that's what all about your mitosis and meiosis, but we'll continue about this chapter. So today we'll start about, so just think about how then you have an idea about how mitosis happens, how meiosis happens. The two different way of cell division. One is equal cell division, another is reductional cell division. But then you think how different types of cell or different parts of our body can be produced from a single cell. Like if you think zygote, once egg is fertilized by sperm, you have formation of zygote, and from that zygote you will get the formation of the body, our whole body. So the question comes how the different parts of our cell, body cells, will be produced from a single cell. Okay, so this is here the zygote is. So zygote will be rapidly dividing and through a process of mitosis. All the process that we'll be seeing here in the mitosis. So single cell, two cell, four cell like this. And then at some point, once say around 18 cell stage, after that they will form completely different characteristics, that cells. Okay, and from those cells different other types of cell will be produced. The process that is called differentiation is mentioned here. So from, if I can summarize, so zygote is a single cell, and from the single cell we have to make different kinds of cell that will produce our different parts of our body, the whole organism. So I told you there could be only maybe 3 or 4 rounds of cell division from the zygote, maybe up to 16 cell stage. They might be retaining pretty similar characteristics, but after that they will kind of transform to a different kind of cells. The process that is called differentiation. Okay, and how that will happen? So the cell will undergo asymmetric cell division. So what is that we'll be talking about? We'll be talking about that. So in case of asymmetric cell division, the genomic content. So once a cell undergoes asymmetric cell division, so a cell divided into two cells, but it's not symmetrical manner, then the genomic contents of the chromosomes will be equally segregated. The only difference is that some of the cytoplasmic component will be unequally distributed. That's why it's called asymmetric cell division. So during the differentiation, or in other words, when from a single cell you have two different kind of cell, so there a specific set of gene will be either turned on or turned off. I hope you know what is gene and what is transcription. Also, all things has been talked about it. So just think, for example, if from this common cell a muscle has to be produced, then a specific type of protein that is present in the muscles called myoglobin, so that gene has to be turned on. This is just to give a simple example. There could be hundreds to hundreds of different genes could be turned off or turned on. On the other hand, if you think about a brain where there are neurons, so if this cell has to make a neuron, then there will be specific expression of particular type of, say, neurotransmitter. Similarly, if you think about your blood cell has to be produced from this cell, then that cell has to have some kind of capability to produce a specific protein that will be there in your red blood cell. Here is called hemoglobin. Okay, so this is how. So this just kind of give a simple example. So you can think any parts of your cell. So if that has to be produced, like if this common cell has to produce a liver, then it has to turn on or turn off a specific set of gene that will ultimately lead to the formation of the liver. So the process that's very important is called differentiation. But then, so this is all clearly mentioned here. Okay, so there are some set of genes that will be there in always expressed. So they are called housekeeping genes. So they will not be changed. only specific set of the genes will be changed. Specific set, I mean, expression of specific set of the gene will be changed depending on the cell or tissue type. What point you have to note, the zygote when undergoes for a first round of, so one zygote when it will make a 2 cell, then 4 cell, 8 cell, then 16 cell. It's very difficult at this, even at this stage, to really pinpoint up to what stage, but probably up to 16 cell stage, those cells are always kind of making even a similar kind of characteristics, and that's up to 16 cell stage. These cells are called totipotent. So this is very important for you to remember. It's called totipotent cell. Why it is called totipotent? Because the cell, a single cell, can give rise to a whole organism. Like we know that zygote, from zygote we all have produced. From zygote, any full organism can be produced. But now I am giving you information. It's not only zygote. Up to 16 cell stage, each and every cell has the capability to produce an organism. So that's why it's called totipotent. So total organism it can produce. But after 16 stage, you may not be, I mean, cell will not have the capability to produce a full organism. But they will have the capability to produce a specific cell type. Okay, so that's a different name. That's called, then its totipotency is gone. It now retain another characteristics that's called pluripotency. We'll again come back to this stage. So in other words, you can say the zygote, a fertilized egg, is a totipotent cell. I hope that's no doubt for you, anybody to understand. So zygote, a fertilized egg, is a totipotent cell because it has the capability to produce an organism, complete organism. I think that's all we know. But you can think even 16, up to 16 cell stage, each and every cell have the capability to produce organism. What is problematic here is I am giving you the 16 cells, but it's not always possible. If you look literature, you will find out maybe after 8 cell, it is difficult. Even it is difficult to make full organism. So 8 to 16, so there is a dilemma. It's still not really clear up to what stage a cell will be retaining the totipotency. Okay, but after that cell will convert, or it will retain a multipotent character, which means the cell will have the capability to produce a specific organ like brain, like heart, liver, like this. Yes, we will talk more details about that. So the process we are talking about, this is called differentiation. It's a simple mitotic cell division. The genomic contents are equally distributed. Only problem is the cytoplasmic RNA, some of the proteins, mitochondria, all those components are unequal. I mean, in one cell it might be getting more, in another cell it might be less. So that makes asymmetric way of cell division. Okay, the most important point is the genomic contents are equally segregated. The genome is equal. I mean, there is no difference in the genome in the two sister cell or two daughter cell. So only difference is the cytoplasmic, some of the cytoplasmic component like RNA, ribosome, mitochondria, and so on. So there are two ways. So the differentiation can be two way. One way I already talked about is the asymmetric cell division. Like if you think this is one parent cell and this is the two sister cell, you can see some unequal distribution of the cytoplasmic component that lead to two different characteristics, daughter cell or sister cell. There is another way the sister cell can be different, that is called extrinsic signal. Some of the outside signal, some cell might secrete some of the factors that will work on the nearby cell. If you see this is two daughter cell or two sister cell, one cell will receive those extrinsic signal and can transform to completely different characteristics. Okay, can get completely different character. So now these two daughter cell will be having two different character. Okay, so that's how the differentiation takes place. Now again, this cell when it will undergo second round of mitotic division, pretty same thing can happen. So now we can think this cell might produce as brain, this cell might produce as your heart, so like this. So this is how things happen. So you have to remember the fundamental process that's called differentiation, and the differentiation can take place by two different ways. One is called asymmetric cell division, another is called extrinsic. I mean, after getting extrinsic signal, there are many growth factors that can act as an extrinsic signal. Okay, and this is a little more details about, because we are heading towards talking about the stem cells. So this is just kind of making a ground for that. So now if I think about, again, from the single zygote, okay, so after 16 cell stage, you have the asymmetric cell division. You can think that way. So maybe this is one of the 16 cell. That's called stem cell. Even the zygote itself is called a totipotent stem cell that I already mentioned. So, but each and every cell, that 16 cell, one cell you can think about their stem cell, and that can be called also totipotent stem cell. So this stem cell, when it is undergoing asymmetric cell division, first round, so you can think this IP means the intermediate progenitor cell. It's also called stem cell, but in this case, this cell change its characteristics completely. So this cell might have the capability to produce only brain, only liver, only heart, like this. So in that case, we call this stem cell or intermediate progenitor cell is a pluripotent cell. It has the capability to produce a specific organ. But the important thing is it don't have the capability to produce a full organism. It's very, very important for you to remember. So now this intermediate progenitor cell again can undergo symmetric division just to make the heart, just to make liver. So they are all same cell. But again, it can go another round of asymmetric cell division, can make another progenitor cell. You can think this may be blood cell, progenitor cell for blood. So, and once this goes asymmetric cell division, it can produce red blood cell, or it can produce white blood cell, and so on. So like this. So this is how this process can go on. So, but the stem cell can itself even can self-renew. So it can make its own. It can divide and make again stem cell. That's called self-renew. Okay. So one of the important points, so again I mentioned here the genomic content in this kind of asymmetric cell division, genomic content is equally distributed. So each and every cell get equal number of chromosomes. That's where there is no problem. The only problem is the asymmetric distribution of cytoplasm, mostly the RNA, ribosome, and so on. So that, another way you can think, it is the alteration or alter expression of different gene. So some gene will turn on and turn off, that lead to a specific characteristics cell. I think that's for enough for understanding the asymmetric cell division. But we'll go more details about the stem cell, because this is one of the most hot area at this moment in biology. And why, you can easily understand, because if you can think, you can easily think that this cell has the capability to produce any kind of cell that you can think in your body cell. Then you can easily think what could be its potential for any kind of disease therapy. Okay, so let's just think about what is the stem cell. So it is an undifferentiated cell, and it can have the ability, it has the ability to rapidly divide and multiply. Okay, so you can see here it can multiply very rapidly, and it has the capability to produce any kind of your body cell. You can think here blood cell, muscle cell, your brain cell, heart cell, and so on. Okay, so you can think about, so stem cells are, so you can, I already talked about, so in your embryo, when your zygote is fertilized, so you can see the stem cells are there, at least several rounds of division, you can think they are all stem cell. But in a normal adult, like in our body, at this age, in your body, you can find out stem cell in each and every organ. Like think about your bone marrow, where all your blood cells are produced inside the bone. So they are continuously stem cells are making your blood cell. In your brain, there are specific area in our brain where there are stem cells present. It's called neural stem cell, and they are continuously feeding your new neurons. We all know, probably in childhood we have studied that neurons don't divide, but now you'll be seeing that in your brain neurons are dividing. So the statement that I don't know whether you learned in your childhood, the statement is not really correct. So neuron divides, and there are continuously new neurons are produced in your brain even at this age. Similarly, in different parts of your body, okay, you can find out stem cells. Okay, so their job is, if there is something damage happens, like if you think in case of brain, if there is a damage happens in your brain, those new neurons, stem cells will be producing those neurons, and they will be going integrated those places. So that's a continuous process. So here is some of the terminology I already mentioned, but again I can tell you. So totipotency I already explained. So it is the ability of a cell to make the full organism. So zygote is a totipotent stem cell, and I told you up to 16 cell. And the pluripotency means the cell don't have the capability to produce a full organism, but it has the capability to produce a particular cell or organ, brain, liver, heart, so on. And it will have the self-renewal capacity, means it can reproduce, so it can divide. And of course, it will have the asymmetric cell division characteristics. So by this way, it can make, specific type of cells. So that's all some of the characteristics feature a stem cell should have. Okay. So this is the I told. Yes.
So if stem cells can be used for producing any kind of cell, is it possible to like artificially kind of make the stem cells from a particular?
Right. I think you are right, and so that's some of the example I am going to show you. That's actually this is one of the most promising area at this moment in the biology. It can dramatically change our lifestyle. I will be showing subsequently. You will be seeing, maybe you will get an answer, many of the answers, whatever you are thinking. Okay, but just think, so yeah, I think the next slide only I'll start that. So what I say, I just said you that totipotent stem cells. So I hope you all understand. So up to 16 cell stage, but again I should mention there's a dilemma. There is still not clear whether 16 or even before that. But certainly it's not after 16. So once after 16 cell divides, so those cells will not have the capability to totipotent character. Okay, so it varies. It still varies from lab to lab. I mean, you don't have really consensus. Even if you think, these are talking about a human, but if you think the experimental animal like rodents or mice, maybe after second or third stage, I mean, after second cell, maybe it will be difficult to keep this totipotent character. So it's really a problem to come to a consensus stage. But this, at least you should not forget, a fertilized egg is a totipotent stem cell. Okay, and if you subsequent slide you will see. So if you take all those 16 cells, if you think that each and every cell has the character, yes.
Sir, means if stem cells can has the ability to differentiate and create new cells, means can we then slow the aging process by means stem cells and generating?
Aging process will be difficult because the whole aging process will be taking place in your whole body, right? It's not that only brain is aged, heart is aged or something. It's your whole organism is getting aged. So in that case, it will be very hard. But if you can replace a particular organ, you want to replace your heart, is possible by making a heart cell in your lab, and then can replace. Particular organ can be replaced, but to think about changing the aging process, no, it is not that way. I mean, stem cell cannot do that. But you can make you can make a replica. Like if I just say here, if you think about, we are all produced from zygote, right? Now you know that up to 16 cell, each and every 16 cell can produce an embryo. I mean, a full organism. So in other words, you can think you can make a 16 baby at the same time, if you want. It's possible. That is possible. Okay, from a single zygote, you separate all the 16 cells, put in and individually grow them in the lab, Once it goes certain stage, you can put in pseudo-pregnant mother, and they can give you the birth of baby. So 16 baby you can at a time you can make a replica. Those things are possible. But whatever you are telling that that aging process can be slowed, no, that's by using stem cells you cannot do that. But there are some other ways. By manipulating some genetics, that is possible. Anyway, so I am going ahead. So now you ask questions. So what could be the possible implication? So by now you already got it. So if a stem cell has the property to give rise any kind of cell in your body, then you can think tomorrow that your some part of the brain is getting damaged. You can make those neurons in your lab in a dish and try to replace it. Same thing in case of heart. If you have a heart problem, you can replace it. I think some of the major issues could be, the applications could be liver, your blood, and so on. And there are many therapy already, many of the things are already in therapeutic applications, particularly in case of blood. There are some kind of blood cancer can be treated by using this, and it's already done, going on. But there are some processes are very much critical, like if you think you want to replace some of a damaged neuron in the brain, it is still too preliminary stage to think. But in principle, it is doable, right? If you think this way, it is possible. So there will be sometimes we could solve those mysteries. Okay, so this is the applications. Now you can think some of the serious issues. In theory, it is absolutely fine. You can do, and it's possible to do. But look at the practical angle. So if you think about the practical angle, first thing is where you can get those stem cells for therapeutic purpose. Obviously, first choice could be your embryo, right? You can get all those fertilized from the fertilized egg. You can split and get a different kind of different kind of stem cell. They are pluripotent, so from there you can make different kind of organ. That is possible. But here is serious ethical issues. Okay, and I hope you understand this issue. So the major problem is here comes is you are damaging, you are killing an embryo. It's ethically, many religious people believe this ethically wrong. Okay, so that's one of the biggest hurdle at this moment in stem cell research. Okay, the ethical issues. Can you kill embryo? So this is difficult. So most rules don't allow that, including United States and many other countries. Only one or two countries probably have not strict rule. Otherwise, most countries don't allow to do this. So this is gone. Okay. Then look at the other ways. Now I told you, in adulthood, adult organisms. So there are many places you can find out those stem cells. Each and every organ probably having the stem cell. Like you can think brain, heart, like this. But the problem is to get the very few and getting them in intact condition. Theoretically is very easy, but getting them in live conditions and making them in the lab, putting them in the lab is extremely challenging. It's still not possible at this stage to really get them out and grow them. So a lot of hurdles are there, and also very few cells you can get. Then what is the solution? So people then struggle to find out the alternate ways. When you have hurdle multiple ways and you have a open kind of things, people are demanding it that for many disease purpose you need this badly. Then people are struggling to find out alternate ways. And one of the alternatives I'll be showing is called induced pluripotent stem cell. What does it mean is you can have now the capability to make a stem cell by taking any of your cells. You can take your skin cell, just scratch your skin, take some live cell, put in the lab dish, and then transform them to a stem cell. It looks like a very miracle, but it's possible, and I'll show you some of the slides that even some guy got Nobel Prize for that. It's called induced pluripotent stem cell, which means you can actually transform a differentiated cell, or like any of your normal cell. You can think about skin, you can think any kind of cell of your body, and you can now change that cell back. You can back calculation. You can think of it. So from that kind of final mature cell, you can now go back to its early stage. So you make this skin cell into a stem cell. Okay, like in mathematics, you do back calculation. So this is kind of the same way, going back. So that's called the stem cell, induced pluripotent stem cell. And if you look at the research, there are many years people are struggling to get that. So there are many ways you can do that. So nuclear transfer, cell fusion, genetic manipulation. Some of them will be talked in the last class, like genetic manipulation and nuclear transfer. How the dolly is made. I'm sure many of you probably heard about the artificially cloned sheep dolly. So you will be talked in the last class. But today, what will be focusing more on it? How just putting four different factors inside a cell artificially, you can make your skin cell become a stem cell, and that's got the Nobel Prize. So this is just to kind of give you a kind of timeline how the field actually moving ahead. So this is the guy who is the pioneer to make the induced pluripotent stem cell, but of course there are a lot of other people have contributed in this area, and that John Gordon actually is one of the person who first made actually clone frog from differentiated cell. But we will be first time we will be just talking about discovery of this Shinichi Imanaka. So this actually transformed completely the idea. So think about, you take your skin cell, put in your dish, and just put four different factors. They are called transcription factor. Four different factors, KLF1. You don't remember this name actually. Just remember four different transcription factor in different combination. It's not that all will be the same level, different combination. If you put, and the combination is now oil formulated. You put this normal cell, skin cell, or any other cell, and cultivate for time. Sometimes these cells will now be transformed to a stem cell. You can see they will form nice colonies, and now these cells start rapidly dividing. Now you don't have to do anything. They will just divide randomly, and they will get the characteristics of pluripotent stem cell. You have to remember pluripotent character they will get. So far, whatever people have achieved, you can convert a skin of your skin cell to a pluripotent stem cell, not the totipotent. It's very important for you to remember. A totipotent means you can make your replica from your skin cell. I'm sure someday it's possible. So at this moment, you can make any kind of pluripotent stem cell from your any kind of cell. The easiest way to take is your skin cell. It's called skin fibroblast. Okay, so that's the technology, and you can think so simple technology. The only problem is to how to introduce inside the cell. There are ways you can introduce the cell. You can use virus or some kind of electrical pulse. The multiple way you can put these factors inside the cell. At the end, you get this stem cell. Okay, so now you can think. So you have made stem cells, pluripotent stem cell from your skin. Okay, by reverse way. And now you have the cell. Now you take this cell and make different kind of cell of your body. Okay, so this is a pluripotent stem cell. Now this cell has the capability to produce any cell type of your body. So that's the advantage, and you can understand the power. So now you think you have a problem in your brain, so you can make a pluripotent stem cell from your skin, and now use this stem cell you can convert to your neuron. It's your specific, I mean, your all genetic makeup is yours. All the genomes are in these cells is yours. So you can convert this pluripotent stem cell to a neuron, to your liver cell, to your heart cell, and that where is the advantage. So if you have a problem with your brain, you can put them. If you have a problem with your liver, you can use that purpose. So you can understand the potential therapeutic application. Okay, so that's how it is. So that's what I showed you here. So there are multiple ways you can take it. Suppose that these are the way you can. So you can make your iPSC from any cell of your body. That's what it is showing here. But if you look at the implication, how you can use this induced pluripotent stem cell. Of course, I mentioned you if you have a problem any part of your body, so you can make those parts by converting the stem cell, putting different factors. But you can also use those cells for various drug development. You can use those cells to test various drugs against various diseases. There are many things you can do it. Suppose you have a genetic disease. Just think you have a genetic defect. in your blood cell, for example. Okay, so now what you can do is you take out your skin cell, so your mutation is there in your every cell. So you take out those skin cell, convert it to stem cell. Now you correct the error. You correct that mutation, okay, in your stem cell. I hope you understand. So you correct the error, whatever mutation happens for the disease causing mutation, you correct that error, and then you differentiate those stem cells to your particular cell type. And then, like if you think in case of blood disease, you have a blood disease because of some mutation, you correct that error, the mutations in this stem cell, and then you have a normal cell types that you can put back to your body. This is a wonderful way to correct any kind of genetic disorder you can think, I mean theoretically. But at this moment, we still have a lot of hurdles. There are a lot of promising areas now, and hope over time things will be okay. But what at this moment you have to understand is the power of this kind of tools to cure different kind of diseases, different kind of degenerative diseases, where the stem cell can be used to completely probably cure. But I guess it's not easy to think about how to getting more and more young, how to aging process, how to slow down the aging process. That's probably too not so difficult to and not so easy to think. Okay, so I hope this is about the power of your stem cell, and this is what I should end up this part by telling this ethical issue. I already pointed out. You think the huge implication of this area of the stem cell for different disease purpose. I think most important probably implication could be degenerative disease in your brain, any kind of degenerative disease that you can think in your brain. Okay, so those has a huge promise, those diseases, because so far we don't have any cure for those disorders, and the stem cell research provides a huge promise for that. Okay, so you have a huge advantage. But the problem that is right now is dilemma is we are, because the stem cell we are killing a particular embryo. So there are many activists, religious groups are putting a kind of problems, so that need to be kind of sorted out. So therefore, every country, even including India, I mentioned here, has a strict guideline. India allowed to do stem cell research. Okay, there are many labs in India now doing stem cell research, but there is a strict guideline, and we need to follow it. Okay, so it's not that you suddenly want to do a stem cell research, you can do it. You need permission from government, and government will continuously monitor your progress. So whatever you are doing, so that's very important for you to remember. Okay, so this is all about your stem cells. So there are certain books, but this part, stem cell part, you will not get probably in any books because they are emerging areas. So whatever there in your slides, I think that should be enough. But if you have any questions, certainly you are free to write me mail. That not going to happen so easily. So now we'll turn on to different areas. Okay, so we talked about cell cycle. Not talked about cell cycle. We'll be talking about cell cycle. We talked about two different types of cell division. One is mitosis, and of course one is meiosis. Okay, but by now you already understand that, of course, in case of mitosis, one cell will be dividing 2 to 4 like this, but it has a huge control. It's not that so easy to think that the cell will divide whatever way we think, or you think a bacterial cell, like it is dividing like a geometric progression, geometric way. But in our cell, our body, cell don't divide that way. If you look at some of the examples showing here, some of the cell, like in your embryonic stage, stem cells divide rapidly. But if you think in your intestine, just to give you an example, it divides. It takes 1 day to divide one cell into 2 cells. You think in the case of liver, it takes probably 1 year to divide one cell into 2 cells. So this is just kind of give a rough figure. But of course, if there is damage in the liver, then suddenly some cell will divide, some cell will be rapidly divided. So this is a kind of normal scenario when you don't really require to get more liver cell. Liver is optimally there and liver is intact. So in that circumstances, probably one cell will be divided in 2 cells. That will take about 1 year time. And you think in your brain, we all know that neurons don't divide. Of course, that's I told you is not really correct. They divide, but takes several years probably sometimes. But there are continuously new neurons are produced in your brain. So our next class will be on neurobiology. Okay, so this is how it is. So that tells you that the cell division are very, very tightly regulated. Very, very tightly regulated. There are several layers of control. It's not that one control systems are exist. So one control system in the first round of control system will be regulating. Then there is a second round of control system. Third round, there are multiple layers of control. Even if one control system fails, the other will come out, I mean, bypass the mechanism. So it's not going to be so difficult, okay, to think. But for the rule always don't really work accordingly, whatever way you think. So there will be always some abnormalities. And if there is a problem of mitotic cell division, obviously you can think the end output. If cell don't divide appropriately, you can think there could be abnormalities. And one of the most common abnormalities that you can think in cell cycle division is called cancer, a tumor. So if cell cycle don't grow in a regular manner or not appropriately, then you'll end up with kind of large number of cells, and that will ultimately lead to a problem that called tumor, and then you can think cancer. So that's a subject that we will be talking now. Okay, so the cell cycle is very, very tightly regulated, and if the regulation fails at some point, of course the organism try to correct that errors. But even if that also fails, then you will end up some different kind of disease, and one of the most common disease that we will be seeing in abnormality of cells division, that's cancer. Okay. But then how cell divisions are tightly regulated, that we are talking about. So here is the different phases of your cell cycle. We only know about the mitosis. Okay. This is a part we already discussed in last class. But before that, so before the mitosis can happen, you can think there's a huge amount of time cells spend to think or to make a groundwork. And this is the phase, all the other type of phase we call is interphase. So cell cycle between interphase and mitosis. Okay, first is interphase, then happen mitosis. So now interphase states can be divided into multiple phases. First is called G1, S, G2. Then only come mitosis. So what is G1? So G1 stage is a kind of gap phase. It's called gap. G stands for gap. It's the first gap phase where cell kind of getting ready. So cell thinks that everything is on place. So now I can go for a division. So it's kind of phase where cell check all the parameters, that all the parameters are perfectly on place, and now I can go for a division. Okay, it's a huge amount of time it takes to think about that. Okay, so the next phase is called the S phase. That's the phase we all know is the kind of replication phase. So DNA synthesis takes place at this stage, and you know the process of replication. Okay, so the S phase. So after the synthesis or after the DNA replication, there is another again G2 phase, another gap phase. So this is the phase when cell again cross-check that everything is perfect. The most important thing is cell check whether the cell, whatever is the replication that has happened is really perfectly okay, or is there any error in the replication. It's not that always system will go perfect. There will be definitely error. So if there is an error, cell don't go for a division. It just abort at the stage. Okay. Even in the G1 stage, if the G1 stage cell thinks that there is some problem, cell don't go for a division. It just stay in that stage. But once cell divides, DNA replication takes place, and in the G2 phase or the second gap phase, when cell understand there is a problem of replication, there is something happens, at this stage, cell actually of course it not proceed for mitotic division, but at this stage cell undergoes a different process that's called apoptosis. We'll be talking in the last few slides. It's called cells actually commit suicide. So apoptosis is a process that's in other way is called a suicidal mechanism of a cell. So cell die in simple way. Okay, so after this gap phase 2, when cell thinks everything is perfect, your what you call replication is absolutely fine, there is no error, and all other parameters are fine, then only cell undergo mitosis. Okay, and then 2 cells will be produced, then some cell again come, again G1 phase. If you want to divide, if you don't want to divide, then it goes and stay in G0 phase. So most cell in our bodies, which is not dividing, it just stay in G0 stage, resting stage. So I hope you got the cycle. So if you think the cell division cycle between interphase and metaphase, the interphase stage is divided into multiple phases like G1, S and G2. G1 is the first gap phase where cell decides whether to go or not to go for a division. It's a decision making phase. S phase is the replication phase, DNA synthesis phase. And the G2 phase is the phase cell again cross check whether replication is perfectly okay. If it is not okay, it commits suicide. If it is okay, then only it goes for mitosis. I hope this is clear to you guys. So this is the typical cycle. And if you look at little more details, I'll go into more details actually. There are 3 stages. It has a very strict control. 3 stages you can think. The first stage is called start or restriction point here. G1S transition. When cell is going G1, gap phase 1 to synthetic phase, like replication phase, in that transition, this is one of the first quality control checkpoint. So at this stage, I already mentioned, cell several times recheck, so everything is fine. If something wrong, it will not go for division. That's the first quality control checkpoint. Is whether is environment, as mentioned here, is the environment favorable? Is everything okay? The second checkpoint comes G2 to M boundary. So gap phase to mitosis, just in the transition phase, when cell cross checks several times that replication is okay and the environment is favorable. So you can see how multiple layers of cross checking are there. And if is everything fine, then it undergoes mitosis. Of course, mitosis happens, but even in the mitosis at some stage, if you recollect, at stage where all the duplicated chromosomes are lined up in the equator, if you can remember, that's the metaphase stage. So in the metaphase stage of mitosis, all the duplicated chromosomes are lined up in the equator and they bound with the microtubules. Okay, so that's the stage. That is another stage where cell also have a quality control check. Just check that every chromosomes are attached with the mitotic spindle so that they can be equally segregated, equally separated. That's the last quality control checkpoint. And I told you if there's a problem of separation, what kind of disease can come out, right? Some cell might have more chromosomes, some cell have less chromosomes, like so aneuploidy, some such will come. So there are 3 major checkpoints where cell cycle are tightly, regulated. Checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3. Then the question, these are all very, very basic aspect. Then you can think how that happened. I'll just give a little sense about it. It's very complicated, but I'll give a little sense about that, how this checkpoint is controlled, how this checkpoint is actually working. That's actually done by a specific enzyme that's collectively a little bit difficult. That's called cyclin dependent kinase. It's called CDK, cyclin dependent kinase. So this is enzyme. You already know what is enzyme. So kinases are the group of enzymes that by default, whenever any enzyme has some kind of last part is kinase, you can by default think it will add a phosphate group to a substrate. Okay, so once the cyclin dependent kinase is activated, it actually phosphorylates some of its substrate protein and then activate that protein. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is cyclin dependent kinase is one of the most important regulator of cell cycle control. Okay, now here it is another thing, how this activity of the cyclin dependent kinase is regulated. Cyclin dependent kinase are constitutively there in every cell. Its level is constant. The problem here is the CDK. The problem here is the cyclin. The cyclin level is getting up and down in different phases. Like in G1 phase, there are different cyclin is getting up. And S phase, there is different cyclin is coming up. In G2 phase, there is different cyclin is coming up. And this CDK can only work once it's bound with cyclin. That's why the name called CDK, cyclin dependent kinase. So when cyclin bounds with cyclin dependent kinase, then only cyclin dependent kinase activity will be there. So cyclin dependent kinase will work. And the cyclin level are changing with the different phase of your cycle. Therefore, each and every phases you have different kind of CDK activity. I hope it's a little bit tricky, but I hope you understand. It will be more clear here. So if you think about in G1 phase or G1S transition phase, there is a particular cyclin is getting upregulated. This is called G1S cyclin. So G1S cyclin suddenly become very high. And you know this G1S cyclin will bind with CDK, cyclin dependent kinase. So you can think G1S cyclin CDK. So this will become very active and that will drive this part, help in transition of G1S phase. Okay, then again its level drops once cell become in S phase. But during the just beginning of the S phase, there's another cyclin goes up. It's called S cyclin. So this S cyclin will bind with CDK cyclin and then will form S-CDK cyclin complex. So that will allow the S phase to continue. So like this, there's another called M cyclin. So there are about 4 cyclins. I just mentioned 3 major cyclin. Okay. So because of the level, most important part is because the level of the cyclin are changing at different phases, the cell cycle actually progress. So there are different phases of cell cycle because of that. I hope that should be clear. This is the first layer of control that we are talking about. Okay, the major control. But again, that we will not talk about it. So just to tell you that the cyclin level again can control by another layer. And that level also again controlled by another layer. So there is multiple layer I mentioned in the beginning. But I hope you understand a little bit about this part. Okay, so different cyclin, different level of cyclin actually helps the cell cycle to go in cyclical manner. That's the simple way I can think. I hope it's clear. So what we talked about in this chapter, that how cell cycle is regulated, tightly regulated. Okay, but then problem is things always cannot be perfect. And if there is an uncontrolled cell cycle or uncontrolled cell division, I mentioned that can lead to tumor followed by cancer. That we'll be talking now. But how can that cell division be uncontrolled? Or another way you think, how that error can come during cell division? So I think you already probably have been given an idea about during replication time, when the DNA gets replicated by DNA polymerase, so it can always make some error. When a DNA polymerase is rapidly adding nucleotides during DNA synthesis, it can make some error. Some error point is mentioned here. Some error it can make, even it has the capability to correct the errors. It can make the error and it can correct the error. Even after that, there could be some error transmitted to the offspring, right? And in daughter cells, that's possible. So that's what it's telling. So that's another way a error can goes to daughter cells and go to offspring, and that's sometimes called the mutation. And the other thing can happen, like this is what I call the spontaneous process because of the replication error. But other than that, there could be induced process like various chemicals, various agents, outside agent, various molecules, various whatever chemicals you can think, even radiation. So they are the exogenous source and they can work in your cell and they can even change your DNA sequence. So that way can cause the mutation. Okay, so there are multiple ways you can think about. So the in natural way is the replication error, and if you think in other ways by artificial ways, the DNA damage can be induced by various agent called mutagens. So in both ways you can think there could be error in your replication or during cell division, and that can be carried to the if cell divides, or sometimes you can think those mutations can lead to the rapid division of the cell. So multiple things it can cause. So then question is how DNA can be damaged or mutated. So I hope don't get confused. So first thing I'm talking about, if there is a problem of cell cycle control, it can land up with a problem that could be tumor. Okay, it's uncontrolled cell division, which means cells are dividing more rapidly. So that can lead to tumor. That's one thing. But now if you think about the inner cause, how can a cell be uncontrolled division? How can cell undergo uncontrolled division? What could be the reason? And once you look at the reason, we will find out two causes, major cause. One could be during normal replication process, DNA polymerase made some errors. Okay, and the other cause could be some radiation. Your body cell exposed with some radiation or exposed some chemicals. So they are typically called mutagens. Okay, so they can induce mutation or change the DNA sequence in your body. Okay, so that can lead to, so both of them can contribute to uncontrolled proliferation, ultimately lead to cancer. So now if I think uncontrolled cell cycle could be either problem of your replication error, or problem of replication, or could be your cell is exposed to different kind of mutagens, radiation, chemicals, and so on. I hope that's clear. So now I'm just talking about how, other than normal replication error, how the different other way a DNA can be damaged. So multiple way you can think. This is the replication error. You can think ionizing radiation. You can think UV exposure or prolonged UV exposure. You can think some chemicals that can have the capability to change the DNA sequence called mutagenic chemicals. Some reactive oxygen species, some smoking, and so on. There are multiple factors we might think about which can cause the change of your DNA sequence or damage your DNA. So if you just see the scheme, so it can damage the DNA, and once that happens, your cell, our cell has the inherent capability to correct the error. So first thing, when you find out some error, you will try to correct the error by putting some repair program. Like I told you, the DNA polymerase has the kind of proofreading function. I think all you know. So that's how it correct the error. But many other way it can be correct the error. Or it can, if that problem happens, it can also pause the cell cycle at checkpoint. I mentioned you. Or it can induce, if also that also cannot be possible, it can suicide. It's called apoptotic cell death. I told you this is suicide. So three different things can happen. If there is a damage in your cell somewhere, even at this age, if your skin is exposed to some UV radiation and suddenly some changes happens in your cell, some DNA sequence has been changed, and during cell division, what will happen is it will correct the errors. If it is not able to correct that, it will try to not to divide, or it will remove that damaged cell. Three way, it can correct the problem. So that's all normal process. Even if these three-way cells are not able to deal this kind of problem, then only you think about the process of tumor. I hope you got the concept. So there are multiple levels of control. And once those problems are failed, those regulations fail, then only you end up with thinking about uncontrolled cell proliferation. That's tumor. Okay. Still some things, probably basic aspect we need to talk about it. So we talked about mutation. I guess most of you are familiar about what is mutation. And just give you a kind of mutation. What are the different kind of mutation you can think? One is called spontaneous mutations that I mentioned, that could be due to replication error, and the induced mutation that just now talked. It could be done by other mutagen. So mutagens are nothing but some physical or chemical agent that can change your DNA sequence, like UV, X-ray, etc. Even you can think about tobacco smoking and some of the chemical agent. And there is another group of molecules called carcinogen, a substance or agent that can promote to induce cancer, carcinogenesis. Okay, so like chemicals you can think about, again, tobaccos, some asbestos, arsenic, radiation, food, colors, so different kind of preservatives nowadays people use in food, different food colors, even some kind of virus, they can work as a carcinogen. Now if you think critically, so mutagens, okay, so what do you call the mutagens? So a physical or chemical agent that can change the DNA sequence. Okay, so a mutagen even can be a carcinogen. Even another way you can think, a carcinogen can also be mutagen. You think about a carcinogen like you think radiation is a carcinogen, but it also can change the DNA sequence. Therefore, it can be called mutagen. So mutagen can be carcinogen. On the other hand, a carcinogen also can be called mutagen. So by looking at this name, what are the mutagens and carcinogens, you can think the many are, all of you probably familiar with this. And I think most important things probably you must remember, some of the common environmental pollutant today you are exposed day to day are actually carcinogen. Think about asbestos, think about the arsenic, probably groundwater. Many places in our country are sometimes contaminated with the arsenic. Sometimes you can think alpha toxin is some of the foods will have, particularly in tropical country, we are tropical country, some of the foods will have these kind of toxins. And tobacco smoke, this of course can be definitely controlled, it's in your hand. But think about some food colors, food additives, preservatives, and many of the things that we day to day eat, day to day are exposed, are actually carcinogen. So you can think how much burden, actually how much trouble we put to our cell. And suddenly cells are struggling hard to correct all those problems. But at the end, it's not possible to correct always. So you can think in today's scenario, the problem of cancer, why we are telling this subject is the problem of cancer is actually one of the serious issues today in our country, in our society. And at some point you will be seeing in many places in our country, there are pockets where probably every family might have one of the patient. And it's not that always it's incurable. Cancer sometimes when we hear about it, it's terrifying. We sometimes think this is the end of life. But that's not always true. Many of the cancer today is subject developed so much that many of the cancer is now even fully curable if you diagnose at the early stage. But still, it is one of the biggest challenges, I mean, today in our society. So that's why we thought that you guys should be familiar about some of the basic aspects. And so in this case, you must be aware about some of the common food that you eat the environment that you are exposed, how terrible that could be for our body, and how continuous exposure of those can lead to cancer, tumor or cancer. We'll talk about details about that. So you understand, I hope you understand, it's not that one day exposure, it's probably a continuous exposure. Like I just give you an example of your drinking bottle, the bottled water that you drink, the Bisleri, the plastic bottled water. You know the Bisleri water, when it's stored, the plastic, it continuously leaches a particular chemical is called bisphenol A, and this chemical is highly carcinogenic. And of course, there's very little amount. Sometimes it goes, but if it goes prolonged time, you're drinking and drinking and drinking, and we all do the same thing. At some point, probably your cell will miserably fail to control, and then you'll end up with the problem. So this, you all should be aware about that. Okay, so we just continue. So we talked about, we suddenly diverted a little bit in other direction, but we're just talking about spontaneous and induced mutation. I hope you have no doubt to understand in this place what is spontaneous mutation and what is induced mutation. Okay. Now spontaneous mutation, if you think in case of mutation in other ways, like if you think about in germline versus somatic, like if you think if there is a mutation during spermatogenesis, some kind of error happens, spontaneous mutation happened in case of your somatogenesis or in case of oogenesis, then you can think that mutation can actually transmit it to the offspring, to the progeny. On the other hand, so that's called germline mutation. On the other hand, we think if there is a mutation that happens in a somatic cell, in different parts of your cell of your body, right? At this moment, suppose some part of your body is exposed to UV lights, so maybe some changes, some mutation happens. And that mutation sometimes, not all the times, may lead to cancer. Okay, so it depends on what kind of mutation it is, how long it is exposed, and so much of factors could be playing role. But certainly, this kind of problem, somatic mutation, can lead ultimately to cancer. On the other hand, germline mutation can be transmitted to progeny, and sometimes this kind of mutations end up with some kind of genetic defect, disorders. I just pointed out two such disorders which you probably all know. I think at least hemophilia you all know. It is a X-linked disorder, and where your blood don't clot. If you have this kind of hemophilia, your blood, whenever there is an injury, so blood will not be clotted, so blood just coming out. And you know that it is royal family, British royal family is having this problem. And there's another problem, is called Fragile X. This is again is a kind of genetic disorder where a child born with again like mental problem. Okay, so some of these are some of the examples just to give you. But we are going towards how germline mutations and somatic mutation can happen, and particularly how somatic mutation can lead to cancer. Now we'll be talking about. Okay, so we just talk if there is a mutation in your different parts of the cell, body cell, then it might lead to cancer. So where that mutation can happen? So you have 30,000 genes in your body, and of course, other than that, if you think about your genome, mutation can happen anywhere in the genome. It's a matter of chance. Okay, so, but if you look at your genome, there are, or in other words, if you look at your cell cycle, there are many, or there are a group of proteins or group of genes you can think, which will express a particular group of protein. A group of genes, they are often called the tumor suppressor gene. Okay, they try to regulate, negatively regulate the cell cycle. The cell cycle are tightly regulated by a group of genes that sometimes called the tumor suppressor gene. Okay, so they try to very tightly control cell cycle. Now you can think about it. So these are the set of genes. There could be 30, 40 such tumor suppressor genes already known. So if you just think collectively, the tumor suppressor genes are the genes that are involved in tightly regulating the cell cycle, particularly the negative regulation. Okay. Now think if there is a mutation. If there is a mutation of tumor suppressor gene, what will happen? So cell cycle will not be negatively regulated, or tight regulation of cell cycle will be gone. So cell will now start dividing rapidly. Okay, and if the multiple tumor suppressor gene having mutated, then inevitably there could be chances of getting tumor. Okay, so there is a group of genes called tumor suppressor gene which negatively regulates cell cycle. On the other hand, today I am not giving any gap. Okay, so we'll just continue. On the other hand, there are another set of genes. They are called proto-oncogenes. Okay, so why they are called proto-oncogenes? Because this set of genes, once they get mutated, they actually sometimes their activity get increased. So mutation actually leads to overactivation of this kind of gene product. So it's called gain of function. So once there is a mutation of the proto-oncogene, they get overactivated, and the name changed. When they overactivated, they called oncogenic. They call oncogene, and that can lead to also a cancer. Tumor. So two ways you can think. So there are a group of genes that are normally try to slow down the cell division. Okay, they are called tumor suppressor gene, and you can by default you can think if there is a mutation, or so mutation will lead to loss of function of those genes. Because once there is a mutation, those genes will not be able to function properly, so the loss of function. So in that case, cell cycle will go rapidly. If in other ways, there are different set of genes, they are called proto-oncogenes, where mutation will cause overactivation or gain of function. Okay, so if that can happen, then you can think also cell can undergo rapid proliferation. So two ways you can think about it. So cancer can happen, or a tumor can happen because of the mutation in tumor suppressor gene or mutation in the proto-oncogenes. So depending on what kind of cancer you have and what kind of problem you have. So there are multiple factors could be linked with that. And I told you there could be 20-30 tumor suppressor gene. Similarly, there could be 20-30 proto-oncogenes that are already known. Plays very important role in cell cycle regulation. And this is our practice. And if there is a problem, then you will end up this. So this is the normal cell cycle control. Normal cell cycle. So there is a balanced activity of your tumor suppressor gene and balanced activity of your proto-oncogene. They are optimally expressed. Therefore, cell cycle are going in normal way. If a liver cell has to divide once a year, that will happen. Okay, so the optimal level will be enough to do that. But now you think a situation where your tumor suppressor gene get mutated. So the inhibitory control is now withdrawn. So the cell cycle start rapidly. Cell is now started dividing rapidly. A liver cell which is supposed to divide once a year is now dividing more rapidly, maybe once a minute, once an hour. Okay, so that depending on what kind of mutation is happening. I'm talking about the end output. Or a similar way, you can think if there is a mutation of proto-oncogene, which will be converted to oncogene, so that will cause the gain of function, then that also will lead to rapid division of the cell. So these are all we are talking about in the context of cancer or tumor. But it's not that always the mutation will cause the problem. The only extreme circumstances it will happen. Sometimes some of the mutations are just cannot cause any problem. Or sometimes the disease will cause a problem, and that we know that your body will be able to deal with that. Okay, that error can be corrected. Even there is a mutant protein product is produced, that still can be corrected. Okay, is the only extraordinary circumstances these things happen. Okay, and we are talking because these extraordinary circumstances now it's not really extraordinary circumstances because today's scenario is becoming a serious problem for us because we are continuously exposed with different kind of pollutant and we are taking food which is probably full of carcinogen. Okay. Okay, so we will just give one example. We will just give one example of tumor suppressor gene, how mutation of that gene can cause the cancer. And there are a lot of work has been done on that, and it is called P53. It's a tumor suppressor gene. Its name is P53. So what it does is, if there is a DNA damage by UV light, or you are exposed to radiation, some sort of radiation, energy radiation, or you are exposed to some kind of chemicals, so that lead to your DNA damage. Okay, some changes happen in your DNA sequence, and then what cell immediately try to do is upregulate the export of this P53. Okay, tumor suppressor P53. If its expression is increased, it try to slow down. It try to correct the errors. It first try to correct the error, and if it even is not able to correct the error, it actually kill the cell. Two way it does the work. First, it try to correct the errors, DNA errors, and even if that is not corrected by this, depending on how much level it is expressed, it kill the cell. So therefore, normal circumstances, it is trying to, if the damage is not that great, cell will try to activate P53, and P53, because of its tumor suppressing property, it try to control. Okay, cell cycle will not be abnormal. But just think, if there is a mutation. Now, if you think there is a mutation in the tumor suppressor gene, so what will happen? Tumor suppressor protein will not be, so P53 will not be able to work properly. So that the job that we will be doing here, two jobs. One is what do you call that, G1 arrest, or another is apoptosis. These two functions it will not be able to do properly. So that lead to uncontrolled cell proliferation. So that means mutation of P53 can cause cancer, right? So if you see somebody having cancer, if you try to find out the cause, if you try to take out the genome of that cell, cancer cell, and try to analyze, you might be able to identify, mutation in P53 gene, because these mutation of P53 gene are very commonly found in different kind of cancer. Okay, so that's why it's often called, sometimes mentioned here, guardian of the genome. Okay, so this is one of the major, but that doesn't mean that it's the only one. I mentioned you there could be 20 to 30 different tumor suppressor genes, and mutation of each of them can lead to cancer. Okay, so there will be confusion. Sometimes I use cancer, sometimes I use tumors. So I'll explain what's the difference between these two. But I hope this part is clear. Tumor suppressor, another is proto-oncogenes. The balance between these two are very much essential for the normal cell division. Okay, so now I'll just kind of talk about, so we talked low details about cancer. So two fundamental property that we'll be talking about. First thing that's very clear, if there is uncontrolled cell growth. This I'm talking about hallmark. Why this slide is okay? So you can see here, these cells suddenly have some problem, right? Maybe cell cycle is not working properly, and these cells are abnormally growing, and so you can see there's a massive growth of this area, the massive cell division, right? Because of cell cycle error, and that's you often term as a tumor. That's what I mentioned here. This is called tumor. So it is staying in the same place. It is growing in the same place. Just think, if it is a skin, particular place of your skin, it is just growing there. Okay, and kind of you might say ball-like structure might be happening in your skin, but its cells are there. So there are two ways you can explain now. It's called benign. I mentioned here. So benign means it just stay in its own place. It's not moving from one place to another place. So that's called benign tumor. So sometimes benign tumor are perfectly okay. I mean, they don't cause problem. They're rapid growth. They're rapidly growing, but it is not causing problem depending on the place where it is. If it is a skin, if it's a surface of your body, some surface structure of your body, if it is growing slowly, say 1 centimeter per year, it may not cause problem to you much. It's just growing a ball-like structure. But this slow growth of, slow growing tumor, if that can happen in your internal organ, it can cause problem. Think a cell is growing slowly, but tumor, benign tumor, that can happen in your brain, that can cause a problem. But often benigns are not causing much problem. First, try to understand benign versus malignant. So what is malignant? So now if you think in this case, if the cell from this place detach, go to the circulation and move to other part of your body. If it detach from here, come to the blood, so like any other blood cell, it can move from one part of your body to other part. So from skin, it might go to your lung, it might go to your heart, it might go to your liver, and there it will stuck and it will grow there. So you now can understand a cancer cell, these cells will be called cancer cell, will detach from the original place and can grow to other organ. So it will go, one cell can go there, attach, and can rapidly grow there. So a skin cell can rapidly grow in your liver. So this is the dangerous stage, and this is the stage is called malignant. So a benign tumor is still much safer, but once it got this malignant character, that is called cancer. So I hope you understand what's the difference between tumor versus cancer. So a tumor is defined as uncontrolled cell growth, but the cell will be localized. The origin, wherever it is origin, it is just localized there. So it's a benign tumor. It don't have the capability to detach from the source and to move other part of your body. That's very important. That's called benign. Okay, and I told you this is less problematic. Even if it's inside your body, if you can properly surgically remove this part, if you can surgically remove this intact benign tumor, you could be absolutely corrected. You will be completely free of the disease. But the problem is once the tumor is transformed into a malignant character, which means the cell from the origin, cancer origin, I mean wherever there is a tumor origin, is moved to other part of your body, you have no way to control. I hope you understand that. A cancer that is, or a tumor that is present in your skin, that cell now gone to your liver and start growing there. Or it is in a circulation, it can go anywhere. So there you have a huge problem. So surgery will not solve the purpose. So it's now the cells, that's called cancer cell is now everywhere in your body, can start growing everywhere. And once you reach that stage, it's probably hard to live, hard to survive. Okay, so only way you can do therapy, either drug, it's called chemotherapy, or sometimes radiotherapy also will not really work that great. I hope you got the point. So difference between a benign versus cancer, benign tumor versus malignant tumor, or tumor versus cancer. A tumor can be called cancer when the cell from the origin will disperse and goes to other part. Is cancer. There are different, sometimes doctor will, if anybody have any experience in your family, you will see there are different grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So once this kind of things happens, so it's kind of different grades calls the different severity. But malignancy means is a problem. I hope this fundamental aspect has to be clear. So if you are clear about this, now you can think, I told you the benign one can be simply surgically removed and you will be absolutely cured. But even you think at the early stage of your, any tumor, when it might not have got the capability to disperse in other part. Once it's in the very early stage, if you detect a tumor at early stage, where at a hot stage and the stage when cells are not actually gone to other part of the body, even at that stage, if you can identify and surgically remove, that can also cause cure, complete cure sometimes. So even if a malignant tumor which is detected at very early stage can also cause complete cure, but still there is a chance. If single cells they stays there, no, you have to understand, if single cell stays there, I mean, over a time it will grow and then again cause problem. And I'm sure many of you probably experience sometimes after surgery, people again relapse. 3-4 years, somebody see the news, somebody got cancer, undergone surgery, 5-6 years is fine, surgery along with maybe chemotherapy, 5-6-7 years fine, then again it relapse and then quickly get problematic. And sometimes once it relapse, it's very hard to survive. Okay, so I'm sure many of you probably hear about that. But I hope you understand the basics. Okay, so this is the problem that I talked about. When a cell from this origin move to out, that is, I told, that's the cancerous stage, and that's another name is called metastasis, or often called malignancy. A malignant, a tumor become malignant when its cells is moved to different parts of your body. So there are different terminologies: cancerous stage, malignant stage, metastasis. So metastasis here is meaning that cells detached cell lose from the, I mean, cell lose from each other. I mean, cells tightly stick each other in everywhere. I mean, in origin, but they lose that capacity, and so cells are very loosened. They just come to circulation and can move. Once they are circulation, they can move anywhere, right? And can start any places, start growing. That's the process is called metastasis, and that's the most dangerous stage. So if you see the situated picture, now you can think how you can treat this. Think this very common ways. If it's localized, you just think this is localized, you can do multiple way treatment. You can surgically remove. I mean, you can remove. That's the best way to do this. Even you are not able to remove it, you can do a radiotherapy. I mean, you can just put ionizing radiation to kill those cells in these cancer cells as well as some nearby cells. Sometimes radiotherapy is very dangerous, but still there is a possibility to cure. But now think, once cells are spreading everywhere, radiotherapy will not going to work. So only hope you have then is the drug. That's called chemotherapy. So you have to eat some drug, and that will go everywhere and try to find out these cells and kill. And that's what some people undergoes. But chemotherapy itself has a lot of problem because those drugs are very toxic. You have to understand, those cells, I mean, those drugs will not only kill this tumor cell or cancer cell here, they also can kill your body's normal cell. It's a huge trouble. So that's where is serious issues when you think about the therapy of cancer. So I'm almost going to end this chapter. So I think that's some of the hallmarks. So I just talked about uncontrolled cell division is called tumorigenesis. Then the second problem of cancer is the metastasis. That I told you, either malignancies or metastasis, whatever way you can think. This is the two important characters, very essential to know for you guys. And then of course unresponsiveness, contact inhibition. There are many other things are there associated with the cancer, but that's not so important. So two important things you have to remember: tumor versus cancer. Try to distinguish clearly, and how you can define the cancer. So that's, I think, now you are understandable. So how when the cell are spreading different parts, and if you have clear picture of that, now you can think how difficult is the therapy could be. How you can think. Of course, there are multiple ways you can think, but it will be so difficult to kill those cells once it's spread everywhere. And that's the challenge. And that's why we sometimes terrify when we heard this name. Once it's reached a metastasis stage, it's very hard to survive. But let's not lose the hope. So subjects are still moving ahead. People are looking for drugs, suitable drugs, which can kill those cells. Okay, so there's another chapter left, few more slides, 2-3 slides. So now think, I hope you understand the problem. Now if you think cells are rapidly dividing, okay, that's the cancer cell, and you have to kill. Just you can you can hypothesize. You have to kill that cell. Okay. So how you can do that? This is one of the you can think. So you have to kill this specific cell, cancer cell. That's one thing. Now I told you otherwise, in normal developmental process, right? In different process, when I talked about mitosis, there are when cells are not able to correct the errors like replication error or different other errors, cell commits suicide. That's why I told the name called apoptosis. That's called cell suicide program. So I'm now trying to bring this together. I'm repeating again. Under normal circumstances in our body has the capability to correct the different kind of errors, genetic errors, and by doing something. And if it's not able to do that, it kills the cell. It's an inherent process. It has the capability, organism has the capability to kill the cell by a process called apoptosis, cell suicide. But now you see here a picture where you try to kill a cancer cell. Can the same strategy be used? That's what I'm trying to, I hope you understand. Can the apoptotic characteristics or how our body's own mechanism, the suicidal mechanism, can be manipulated to kill a cancer cell? Okay, so that's what our last few slides. So that process is called, this is just to show you some kind of cancer, called apoptosis. So apoptosis, or is often called the programmed cell death. It naturally occurring in our bodies, not only in higher organisms. It also take place in unicellular, some of the multicellular organisms like nematodes and flies, mice, even everywhere. Okay, so it's one of the evolutionary conserved process. Okay, it try to eliminate unwanted cell in normal body. That's very important. Now we are thinking how to exploit this process to kill a cancer cell. You can think about it. If we know the process, how our body try to induce this programmed cell death mechanism, if I say this way, how our body is trying to induce a programmed cell death mechanism to kill unwanted cell. If you can try to know that mechanism, we can apply the same mechanism to kill a cancer cell. That's the subject. So that's why this subject is so important. So the apoptosis or programmed cell death is important in two ways. In normal circumstances, you know that, and now the other way, we can use this pathway to kill a cancer cell. I hope that's clear to you guys. And how it works. This is the mechanism process. So fundamental mechanism, the fundamental process. So you have to understand a cell has to go for a death. Cell has to die. How it can happen? So there are, I'm talking about in normal circumstances. So the cell, there are nearby cells sometimes can release some signal, or inside the cell, sometimes there is some signal generated that I have to die. This kind of process, that's why the suicidal program. So I don't want to live, I have to die. So I find out a way. So similarly, cell try to find out a way. So it inside cell it produces something, or sometimes outside somebody try to kill him. Other cell try to kill him by producing something. It's called extrinsic or intrinsic factors. If it's inside the cell, hello. Are you saying something? Oh, no. So it produces something inside the cell, or sometimes some outside cell produces something to work on this cell, to kill this cell. So at the end, cell has to die. So there are inside various parameters like your cell membrane, nuclear membrane, mitochondria, and so on. All has to gradually degrade, and you can see the process. At the end, all will be fragmented, all will be digested, and finally they will be eaten by some of the blood cell called macrophage. So they will not be dying only. So the dead cell will be even removed from your system by macrophages, some kind of blood cell. That's the immunology. And then I will talk from it one after class. I have this process. This is the process. This is how the process happens. So now you can think. So each and every part of your cell individually has to be degraded. So who can do that? So there must be something, somebody, and some enzyme must be produced by these cells to clear those or to chop out these different parts. So particular enzyme will be produced by this or induced by this factor, intrinsic or extrinsic factor. I hope if you can understand a little bit, that's fine. Too much of jargon probably here. But at least understand what is apoptosis. It's a programmed cell death. Normal conditions, our body try to remove unwanted cell by this process, and this is the process. So who can execute this? The executive agent or the guy who try to do all this process, this execution process, is called termed as caspase. That's the enzyme name. We have a new name now, caspase. Why it's called caspase? It's called cysteine aspartic acid protease. Cysteine aspartic protease. You have heard all those protein chemistry. So why it's called like this? Because the cysteine molecule, cysteine amino acid present in the enzyme active site nucleophilically attack and cleaves a target protein after an aspartic acid. Target protein here is a different cellular part, cellular organelle. It can be nuclear membrane, it can be mitochondrial membrane, it can be anything. So that's why the name is called caspase. Too many jargons. And caspase are exist in two different ways, called procaspase and active caspase. They also can be classified into two groups. It's called initiator caspase and executive caspase. And there are two different caspases. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but if you can understand the basics, so that will be great. So this is the two different mechanism how a cell can be dying by apoptosis. One is called extrinsic pathway, another is called intrinsic pathway. Okay, don't have to really remember all those details, but you can just think about extrinsic pathway. There are outside factors. In the intrinsic pathway, like there are a lot of intrinsics inside the cell, some factor will be produced, so that can lead to the activation of this caspase enzyme. I think that much is general. So caspase is the ultimate enzyme that will execute the process. There are different caspases you mentioned here, caspase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 12. I think up to 12 caspase is already discovered. But caspase 3 is the most active caspase that can cleave everything. So these are the protease, so they will cleave, chop out the protein, different parts. So this is how the pathway. So now we'll just come back to this is where I'll end. So now think about this is the process are happening in normal individuals. Cells are trying to remove all unwanted cell that is present in your body by this mechanism. Okay, so these are the caspase, that's the active agent. Now think you want to kill a cancer cell. So that's what it is. So you can now activate this way, these pathways. So if you want to kill a cancer cell, you can activate either of these pathways or both pathways. So now think if you find out any chemical, any agent that can activate either of these pathways or both pathways, can be a potential anti-cancer drug. Okay? But that's not easy. It's a very simple way I can talk, but you can think it's a huge problem it might land up, toxicity and other things. I told you, when you try to kill a cancer cell, how can you save your normal cell? It's difficult. And today's scenario, whatever chemotherapy drug is available, if you have any chance, by any chance you have seen any cancer patient undergone chemotherapy, you will be able to see how terrible it could be. Sometimes the patient completely lose their hair, the skin color might change, body weight will drastically reduce, and so many side effects you can see, and that tells you the normal cell in your body also get affected. Somehow you just survive probably, but this is just for short time, just to have a chemotherapeutic cycle when the drug is going. But once the drug is withdrawn, you will be coming back quickly, hoping that your cancer cell is all gone from the system. But if the single cell is there, that can again relapse. I hope I am able to give some sense about apoptosis, but don't at least forget this name. So today, whatever I talked, I think I am last slide. I think this is also not so important. This is just to give you kind of flavor that apoptosis, how important in normal circumstances. Like if you think, you all know the tadpole. Tadpole, when they're born with a big tail, and this tail is gone when they become adult. So this process of removing the tail is apoptosis. Same way it goes. And when you sometimes see, if you have a pet anywhere, sometimes you see once they're born, like in mice or even in rabbit, when they first born, you see their legs or hands, they are all attached. Like you see here, digit, they are all joined. But as they goes older and mature, they all gone. This is the process by apoptosis. Just a simple way I just can tell you what apoptosis can happen in your body in normal circumstances. They are continuously removing your cells. Okay. So I think I still have 10-15 minutes left, but I am done. So I'll ask, if you have any questions, just ask me. I didn't give any break, so this is the break time. You can ask freely. I don't know how many are there. The guy who asked about, do you have any questions? Who asked about, are you there? Increasing lifespan by using stem cell. Are you there? Hello? Am I audible or not? Or I just talked?
Sir?
You are audible, right? Okay, sometimes I can't hear you. I can see you. It is difficult. I don't know how you are managing. I'm sure it must be adapted by now. Anyway, but tell me any problem that you are facing. I mean, understanding the subject, till 10-15 minutes I can spare.
Sir?
Yes, yes.
Sir, is there any way to prevent the spontaneous mutations? I mean, the non-induced mutations.
Okay, like your DNA replication error you're
Yes,
talking about.
replication. I mean,
that would be really difficult. That would be really difficult. How you can think? Because just think taking example of your DNA replication. The DNA polymerase is doing, and it has its own capability. I mean, it has a 3' exonuclease activity, a 5' exonuclease activity. So that is a proofreading function. I think all you know. It has its own capability. But how can you improve? I think it's very hard. It's going to be too difficult to correct the spontaneous mutation. But suddenly induced one, but we didn't ask question, but induced one certainly can be controlled. I mean, by changing your lifestyle, by changing the way you eat food, you expose. If you can control that, the induced one certainly can be controlled. And if you do that, I'm sure you can definitely minimize your chance of risk of cancer.
so which is the major causing factor? I mean, induced one.
That's the induced one. Definitely induced one. As we are getting more polluted water, whatever pollution, that is the major problem. I mean, I don't know whether chemical engineering students are here or not. All those chemistry people, all those guys will make some odd chemicals in industry, and that will ultimately, we don't know, sometimes they will work in your body and can cause a lot of problems. That's why I told you, mutagens and what is another name I told you, mutagens and carcinogens. These are the two groups. That is the problem. And this simple example I gave you, the water bottle, PET water bottle. Okay, sometimes if you see how they have been moved from one place to another. You will see in the summer, your Coca-Cola bottles in the hot summer, 41, 42 degrees centigrade, they're going hours after hours in the truck, so hot. And at that temperature, the plastic will leach chemicals called bisphenol A. That's actually a carcinogen. So, but we can't avoid that. And all of you fond of all this Coca-Cola and so on. So that's give you an example. Similarly, just think about day-to-day exposure. If you're in Delhi, if you're in all this metropolitan city, Kolkata, every day how much pollutant you are exposing, that is increasing our risk. That's the major problem. I can give you some other example. Even we used to know that in Delhi area, there used to be a train which is coming from certain village of UP. I forgot the name of the village, and there she comes full of cancer patient coming to the AIIMS Delhi. So that tells you there is pocket, specific pocket in our country where there could be maybe industrial belt or maybe some kind of pollutant, maybe is highly concentrated, and that can cause problem in that pocket. So be careful about that. Anything else? Any more questions? Any random questions you can ask? So this is the subject probably not really going to be for you for your future. I mean, I'm sure many of you probably. I'm just thinking maybe 1% of student might take some challenging tasks from coming from engineering background to do some biology field. But for others, just enjoy and just giving exam and just studying like this. There should be some kind of different way of thinking the subject. Just think that way. You don't have to think for a pass or fail. People who are thinking about higher grade, I want to get a good grade, that's fine. But just enjoy the subject. How interesting could be. If I'm able to do that, so that should be great. That's my job, is to do that. I can excite you guys by telling some of the fact that you are everyday probably facing biological background. Any others? I have already uploaded the slide, so you can see. If there is no more question, then yeah.
So you were saying by apoptosis we can kill the cancer cells. So can that be applied to any cell of the body? For example, like for the important organs like brain.
Yes. Say if you think about the cancer in the brain, so that's often called the glioblastoma. The cancer in the brain is called glioblastoma, and that's probably, if you consider all kind of cancer, that's the most terrible. The most terrible, and people probably survive hardly, not even 1 year. I mean, your average lifespan, if you are suffering from, somebody is suffering from brain cancer, it's the most terrible. I think pancreatic cancer also is terrible. So yes, so your question is whether apoptosis can work on that. Yes, it will work, definitely. But can you sense some of the problem you can think? Can you sense? Problem is how to deliver the drug, the chemotherapeutic drug, to the brain. That is one of the biggest challenge. The drug can work in your liver, drug can work in your pancreas, drug can work other peripheral part. But when you think a situation in the brain, a drug cannot simply enter into the brain because there is a barrier. It's called blood-brain barrier. So that is the hurdle, and that is why all chemotherapeutic drug, in theory, they should work, but it will practically, if you think, it will not going to work unless it can cross. So by functionally it is okay, but it has to go to the cell. So that is not possible because it will not cross blood-brain barrier. There's a big hurdle. For any kind of problem in the brain, if you think any drug, the first question that will come, whether it will cross, it will go to the brain. Okay, this is tomorrow, next class. We'll talk about neurobiology.
Sir, can we not inject it into the cerebrospinal fluid directly?
That's a very good question. Yes, we can do that. But how you will do inject? Where you will inject? It is done. I mean, you made a valid question, and it is doable. People does it, but it's very terrible. I mean, where you can you think where you can inject? Where you can inject cerebrospinal fluid?
Like the whole spinal cord is covered by.
Yes. So you know this. Yes, you can inject in the spinal cord, so it will go through cerebrospinal fluid to the brain. It will go definitely, and it is done. It is doable. People does this way, but that is sometimes very terrible. I mean, giving those kind of injections is very much difficult. You need a fine task. Injecting to the spinal cord, and you have to understand it's a chemotherapeutic drug. Okay, and it has to go up to a particular cycle. If you think a chemotherapeutic drug is given to a cancer patient, just think somebody has a liver cancer and has to be treated. So chemotherapeutic drug usually given in some kind of drip, and it will go in a cycle. So maybe 5 days continuously drug will go, and then there will be gap for some times. Again, there another cycle. So like this, maybe 3-4 cycle, depending on how the situation is, cycle has to go. But when you think same situation in the brain, it's too tough. By putting the needles in the spinal cord and you have to continuously give 5 days, 6 days injection, now you understand the problem, no? But still, people does it. But most time it didn't work. It's going to be too painful scenario. So rarely people will be seen this kind of situation. The brain cancer will be treated when chemotherapy will be done this way. And that's one of the reason why the lifespan is nearly maximum probably 1 year. That's what you should be thinking of, pathetic situation. So somebody is diagnosed with this brain cancer. So it means you are thinking that you will die in a year. Think situation. Okay, so any other? Good question. This is a very good question. Any other question? Fine. So if you at some point any curiosity, any questions, you certainly can drop me mail. But I'm sure you have a lot of busy time nowadays. Okay, so I can skip now. Take some rest. Okay, so I'm quitting.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.